Today is April 12, 2024. This text, along with illustrations and drawings, can be used by Mr. John Kerry only. March 17, 2024. Treatise on the concept of pi. Didascales for translation of a text entitled Oedipus the King, by Sophocles, the author of text, set design, choreography, and music. Allow us to imagine that on the stage of the theatre of Dionysus in Athens stands the high double doors of the Theban palace. Oedipus stands in this door as the majestic king of Thebes at the beginning of the tragedy, and in this door Oedipus stands as a wounded, blind man with blood flowing from his mutilated eyes at the end of the tragedy. Behind the doors of the Theban palace, the most terrifying moment described in the tragedy, Oedipus the King, takes place. According to the messenger's words, Oedipus pierced his eyes with gold pins torn from the Iacasta's dress, who had hanged herself a moment earlier. Oedipus, whining that, "You haven't seen what I suffered and what I have done. So in the future you will see in the darkness. What I don't want, what I want, you won't know." If contemporary viewers asked where such a geometric drawing came from, I would give them the key in the form of the concept of a spiral calendar. An indispensable condition for understanding the meanings in the tragedies of the Theban cycle is to familiarize oneself with the spiral calendar, presenting the time of one solar year drawn in a symmetrical horizontal relation at the 0 point to its reflection, creating one geometric drawing. The beginning part of the spiral calendar drawing, as well as the whole thing, but especially the beginning, is the quintessence of pure Pythagorean geometry. It's a graph of right triangles drawn in a systematic way so that each hypotenuse of a triangle is a side of the next triangle. The exception is the starting point at point 0. The beginning of the spiral calendar chart, as well as the whole thing, but especially the beginning, is the quintessence of pure Pythagorean geometry. It's a graph of right triangles drawn in a systematic way so that each hypotenuse of a triangle is a side of the next triangle. The exception is the starting place at point 0. By drawing a mirror spiral horizontally relative to point 0, we obtain a graph of a special point with the value of the square root of 314 on a positive spiral. And in the case of a spiral symmetrical horizontally relative to point 0, we obtain the value minus the square root of 314 at the same point. The number 314 is the value of pi. By definition, it is the proportion of the length of a circle's circumference to its diameter. By drawing both spirals symmetrical horizontally relative to the 0 point, we obtain on the vertical axis of the graph the value of square root of 12 and minus square root of 12, passing each other visually, in quotation marks, and creating a drawing of an apple or a heart. We plot both spirals to the square root of 43, the square root of 94, and the square root of 366 in both treatments, where the intersection points on the vertical axis are constant. Knowing that a year is 365 days plus a few hours long, and that this is the time it takes for the planet Earth to complete a full circle around the Sun when time creates pi, we need to make a mental leap. It is needed to connect the circular motion of the Earth around the Sun, i.e., the time of 365 days, with the geometric drawing of both spirals connected at point of value 0, the square root of 314 and the square root of 365, to assume that such drawing of the spiral do form a representation of a calendar of time equal to one solar year. Time is the soul of this world, said Pythagoras. From the Dictionary of Terminology, quote, circle means amphi or peri. The definition of pi, the ratio of the circumference of a circle equal to 2 pi r, to the length of its diameter equal to 2r. The diameter is the hypotenuse, also means the river horse, hypostamos. Hippocampus is a sea-horse carrying nereids on its back in the Greek mythology. Going back to drawing of the heart. From the text of the entire Theban trilogy by Sophocles, i.e., Oedipus the King, Oedipus at Colonus, and Antigone, we know that Theseus the Athenian shook hands with daughters of the dying Oedipus over the abyss. A quote from Oedipus at Colonus. In the place where Theseus and Pericles shook hands on the precipice before descending into Hades. On the drawing of both spirals, this is the place above the square root of 314 and minus the square root of 3 14, described as the connection of the hands. Moreover, the closed rhombus, as a geometric figure, is incorporated into the mosaic on the floor of the Theatre of Dionysos, which the audience looks at throughout the 3 plays performed in one day. The horizontal hippopotamus, as the diameter of the circle representing the time of rotation for 1 year, according to the constellations on the sky, was depicted exactly as the word sounded as a hippopotamus, often with a crocodile. Ancient astronomers in Egypt and Greece used these concepts to determine time and place on geometry charts, which was made possible by using the spiral calendar. It will be impossible to read the codes contained in Sophocles' Oedipus the King, as well as in the entire The Band trilogy, without combining the geometric drawing of both spirals with the alphabet. The Greek alphabet with letter signs assigned to characteristic trees and plants takes on the importance of a guide and a map when we weave it into the geometry of time immortalized on the spiral calendar. It becomes a manifestation of the connection of human intellect and nature by using the constancy of the cyclical division of the solar year into 13 months, marked by the appearance of the full moon every 28 days. Only the combination of the alphabet and the spiral calendar allow us to understand the patterns of time and geometry described by words of the stories. Tomorrow, when your rock, O Cithaeron, will burn in the full moon. This is how we find geometric places on the spiral calendar. The letter B in square root 358 is December 24th, birch, or wild olive. The letter L in square root 24 is January 21st, rowan. The letter north in square root 49 is February 18th, ash. The letter F in square root 77 is March 18th, alder, or cornel. The letter south in square root 105 is April 15th, willow ss, z, blackthorn. The letter H in square root 133 is May 13th, hawthorn, or wild pear. The letter D in square root 161 is June 10th, oak, or terebinth. The letter T in square root 189 is July 8th, holly, or prickly oak. The letter C in square root 217 is August 5th, narcissi, Q, apple, sorb, or quince. The letter M in square root 245 is September 2nd, vine. The letter G in square root 273 is September 30th, ivy. The letters ing or gn in square root 301 is October 28th, reed, or Gelder rose. The letter R in square root 329 is November 25th, elder, or myrtle. The meaning of such time signs as the astronomical seasons is equally important for understanding Oedipus the King. Because tragedy determines the fate of Oedipus, king of Thebes, by the recognition of the shepherd from Thebes and the shepherd from Corinth, who know that every year for 3 years they drove their flocks to the mountains of Cithaeron and after a few months brought them back for the winter according to movement of the star Arcturus on the sky, which is part of the constellation called Boötes. And so in square root 80 is the beginning of astronomical spring. Square root 173 is the beginning of astronomical summer. Square root of 266 is the beginning of astronomical autumn. Square root of the number 356 is the beginning of astronomical winter. Very important for imagining the scale of time geometry used by the ancients, after recognizing the importance of the spiral calendar for geometry, is the Greek myth entitled Typhon. It describes the 10-year-long fight of the Greek Zeus with Typhon, born from Mother Earth and Tartarus, i.e., the underworld. Well, all the Greek gods, except Athena, were terrified by Typhon, so they fled to Egypt and hid themselves, taking the form of animals representative of the gods of Egypt. So, Zeus took the form of ram, Hera took the form of white cow, Apollo took the form of raven, Mars took the form of wild boar, Aphrodite took the form of fish, Artemis took the form of cat, Dionysus took the form of goat, Hermes took the form of ibis. This description of the escape of Greek gods to Egypt is true provided that the ancient Egyptians used the spiral calendar, just like the ancient Greeks did. We know that Egyptians counted the year as 360 days, plus 5 days free from work. It's April 7, 2024. This text and drawings can be used by Mr. John Kerry only. The mentioned network of meanings is in the air as the appearance of the moon every 28 days and the semicircle drawn in the sky by the sun every day. It is like contemporary installations that are a combination of movement, people, and networks, and the very definition of the installation includes the viewer's participation in the performance. Aristotle considered Sophocles' Oedipus the King to be the most beautiful tragedy. So, I'm reading Oedipus the King. Didascales. Double doors dominate the view of the facade of the Theban palace. There is a stone altar in the middle of the stage. Many years have passed since Oedipus solved the riddle of the Sphinx and sat on the throne of Thebes. Now the plague has attacked the city. A procession of priests enters, broken, desperate, depressed, who carry branches wrapped in wool and put them on the altar. The door opens, guards gather. Oedipus emerges majestically, but visibly limping, and slowly looks around the gathered people. My comment: the twigs are the sign of the month. If they are olive, they mean the letter B. It's December 24th. Wool means sheep's skin. There may be a ram sacrifice, or there may be Nephili, who sent a ram to save her children. The altar stood in the middle, on the vertical axis of the geometry drawing, probably in a place where until recently the photo showed a trace. It's difficult to determine now what the square root number is. Where the altar stood. I'll quote from the encyclopedia. Ara, in Latin, bomos, in Greek. An altar for offering or burning offerings. Originally it was a hill made of earth or a large stone. Gradually, depending on its purpose, it took on various shapes and dimensions. There were small home altars, placed in the representative part of a wealthy house, made of stone, metal, or terracotta. They were used for home offerings by the father of the family. The home altar was a miniature of the altar dedicated to the city's protective deity, which was located in front of his temple. There were also independent altars, not belonging to any temple, placed in sacred groves, districts, near springs, on mountain peaks or inside the city, in public squares. The shapes and sizes of these altars varied depending on the offerings made and the wealth and taste of the donors. They were usually built on foundations, accessible by wide steps. The actual sacrificial act, i.e., burning the sacrifice, was performed on the summit platform, which was always covered with a thick layer of ash. A canal ran through the center of the altar, through which sacrificial fluids and the blood of slaughtered animals flowed into the ground. The decoration of the altar either resembled ritual activities related to sacrifice, or contained mythological themes, as in Greece, or historical themes, as in Rome. End of quote. Didascales included in the translation by Antony Libera say that the action takes place 2 generations before the Trojan War. It is also known that since the Trojan War, the ancient Greeks started counting a new calendar. Prologue. O children, the offspring of old Cadmus, why are you sitting on the steps of my altar, holding these supplication bundles in your hands? Why does the smoke of fragrant incense rise over the city with prayer and groaning? Because I would not like to hear about it through the mouth of messengers, I came here myself. I, Oedipus, famous among the people. Speak then, old man, for you are called to speak for others about what has gathered you here. Fear or suffering. Tell to your king who wants to make you feel better, because he would be heartless if this sight didn't touch his heart. I'm commenting. O children, old Cadmus' offspring. Cadmus is the son of Agenor, the son of Poseidon, god of the seas in Greek mythology. He came from Phoenicia. And now regarding the Genesis, the city is mentioned here. Why is there smoke of fragrant incense over the city? It's about the city of Thebes. And that's what is important here. Genesis of the city of Thebes in Greece. Cadmus came to Greece from Phoenicia, looking for his sister Europa. This is a story from mythology. The oracle said that she should follow the cow with white markings on its sides until it dies, and build a city there. He did so, and to sanctify the cow, he drew water into a helmet, not knowing that it was the fountain of Ars. Ars, the Roman Mars, complained to the gods, and the gods sentenced Cadmus to 8 years of slavery to Ars. 8 years. Such time was called the Great Year. The origins of the city of Thebes in Greece are told as a recalculation of time. A great year is a solar year and is a way of converting both the lunar and solar year in such a way that it gives whole numbers. Only after 8 years does it work out almost perfectly. Speak then, old man, for you are called to speak, fathers. What brought you here, fear or suffering? This is a fragment about Aristotle's Poetics, in which the rules of writing speeches and writing tragedies are presented. Well, I mean in such a way that they teach people, and I'm quoting now from Aristotle's Poetics. We feel pity for the misfortune of an innocent person, and fear for the misfortune of a person who is similar to us. End quote. Theatre was supposed to teach, so these are important fragments, because the poets themselves took part in the agons, and it was a kind of competition, whose audience decided which poet wrote his tragedy best, or several tragedies performed in one day, forming a trilogy. So that's how important it is. I continue. Priest, O Lord, who rules this land, you see how vary the generations that flock to your altars. Some are chicks incapable of long flights, while others are already hunched over with age. I serve Zeus, and the others serve other gods. Equal crowds sat down somewhere else, where the shrine of Pallas, and where the altar of Ismon the Ashen, because the city, as you can see, was flooded by the evil torment, and the people seemed to be raising their heads in the midst of defeat and bloody conflagration, dying in the ground's ears of corn and ground's fruits. Dying in herds of cattle and women after barren births, since the fire-breathing god struck a severe plague over the city, to devastate the city of Cadmus and enrich the wilderness with the groans of black Hades. I'll read it again. Dying in herds of cattle and women after barren births, since the fire-breathing god struck a severe plague over the city, to devastate the city of Cadmus and enrich the wilderness with the groans of black Hades. Even though we do not compare you to the gods, nor do these children, we sit in these thresholds, because we will pass you first among people, among the blows of life and among the sky's thunders. You, because when you came, you freed the ancient city of Cadmus from terrible sacrifices to the Sphinx, without asking or instructed by us on anything. No, on behalf of the gods you gave us life's coolness and relief. I'm commenting. From terrible sacrifices for the Sphinx. The Sphinx flew to Thebes, sat on a hill near the city, and it was a creature born of Typhon and Echidna. Sphinx had the face of a woman, the body of a lion, the tail of a serpent, and the wings of an eagle. And he asked passers-by a riddle, saying, "What is this creature? It has 4 legs, sometimes 3, sometimes 2, it has 1 voice, and it is most defenseless when it has the most legs." Oedipus answered this riddle correctly. So this is the story of Oedipus, who from a traveler became a king because the law of Thebes allowed the man who married their queen to take over the power in the city. There is another important fragment, although we do not compare you to God, nor do these children. Here is an element that will be developed later. The point is that gods are immortal and eternally young, whereas Oedipus is in some way, we don't know yet, but it will be shown later, in some way he is similar to the gods. So we'll see what it's all about. I keep reading. So to you, Oedipus, who is the most dear to us, we send this begging request, asking you to save us, whether from God's advice, finding medicines, or from people's inspiration. Because I see that the advice of the experienced is an earnest for the improvement. So, you are the leader of the men, you are the leader of the city, you are the leader, act prudently, because this land is your savior, for your former readiness. Don't let us remember your rule as much as that after repairing it, the fall brought us down, but definitely build this city to happiness. You came here with a bird of good omen, and today live up to this happy past, because if you still keep the helm of government, it is more beautiful to lead this people than to lead a vacuum. Neither a city nor a ship is worth anything unless there is a man to guard them. I'll read the last fragment again. It is more beautiful to lead these people than to lead a vacuum. Neither a city nor a ship is worth anything unless there is a man to guard them. Oedipus replies, "O poor children, I am too aware of your request's target. I know that all houses are plagued by disease, but amidst the flood of evil, the worst misery strikes me. One more time. I am too aware of your request's target. I know that all houses are plagued by disease, but amid the evil of the flood, the worst misery strikes me. But amidst the evil of the flood, the worst misery strikes me. For only your own burden torments you, while my soul groans for me, for you, for the whole city." Comment from me. Time is the soul of this world. Pythagoras said. So here in the fragment, my soul groans for me, for you, for the whole city, It is about time, and some measure of time we will know what this is about next. I keep reading. I do not wake up from sleep at the sound of your voices. Know that I shed tears and often wander in worries to think about something for the people, to defend them, and I did what seemed good. I sent Creon, the son of Menoicus, my wife's brother, to Apollo Pythian oracles to find out what I should do, and say, to save this city. And as I count the day of his departure, I am already losing peace, for he is away much more time than it takes usually, but when he returns, I would be perverse if I did not follow God's voice. Priest, you speak to us from your soul, and the screams of Creon's men announce the arrival. Oedipus, O Apollo, let him come with a word as saving as his appearance is clear. Priest, I foretell good news, otherwise would he crown his head with laurel. I'll read it again. Priest, I foretell good news, otherwise would he crown his head with laurel. Oedipus, we will soon find out. He may already hear us, O Prince, son of Menoicus, my relative, what news you bring us from God. Creon, good, because I think that even difficult cases become happy with a favorable turn. Oedipus, what is this word? Because I wouldn't be able to derive fear or comfort from this speech. Creon, do you want me to speak immediately in front of people or enter the house? I'm ready for anything. Oedipus, speak here in front of everyone, because the grief of these people torments me more than the fear for my soul. I'm commenting. Here's the part about inside and outside. It's about inversion in geometry. This is a method where points inside the arc correspond to points outside the arc or circle. So we can guess that it's about this kind of decision, move. I keep reading. Creon. So let me tell you what God has announced to me. Phoebus firmly ordered us to cut off from the homeland the scum that was growing in the land and not endure it any longer. Oedipus, with what ritual? Where is this nightmare hidden? Creon, the man must be expelled or murder redeemed by other murder. This blood is bringing a storm upon us. I'll read it again. Creon, the man must be expelled or murder redeemed by other murder. This blood is bringing a storm upon us. I'm commenting. It may be necessary to expel law that was established in 509 BC, which concerned banishment, or to redeem it with another murder, i.e. geometric mirror images on both sides of the vertical axis. On the second power. It's like geometrically balanced actions, this way. It's like balance or justice, but more like balance in geometry. I keep reading. Oedipus. What man does God want us to defeat? Creon. Les once ruled this land as king, before you took the helm of government. Oedipus. I know this by ear, because I didn't know this man. I'm commenting. Les, the king who reigned in Thebes before Oedipus, is Oedipus' father, which he does not know yet. And Les came from the Labdacid family. Labdakos means help with the torches. From the illustrations it can be concluded, and from the spring rituals, that night races with torches were organized in cities, where the lit torches carried by the runners drew a sine and cosine wave line in the night's air. Help with the torch may, or may not, mean the height of a sine or cosine wave as the size of the torch. Height means the distance to the horizontal axis. That's why it is important. I keep reading. Creon. So God ordered us to punish and avenge those who killed him. I'm commenting. So, those. From this moment it becomes plural. So God ordered us to punish and avenge those who killed him. God is Apollo. So we'll have to find out what this plural means. Not one, but those. I keep reading. Oedipus. But where are they? Where will the traces of the old and age-covered crime be found? Creon. In this land, he said, let's follow and we will catch. Whatever a man neglects will go unpunished. Oedipus. Was Les killed inside the house, or somewhere in the field, or in the countryside? I keep reading. Creon. He left the country as a pilgrim and then never returned to his capital. One more time. He left the country as a pilgrim and then never returned to his capital. Oedipus. And isn't there a witness or a companion on the road that we can question? Creon. They died. The one who ran away in fear definitely knows nothing except one thing. Oedipus. What is that? One thing can help to discover as long as there is something to begin guessing from. Creon. He said that Laos did not fall by one hand, but a bigger number attacked him. I'm commenting the plural motif is repeated here. Not one, but more people attacked him with blows. Oedipus. Would it be possible that if he hadn't received the money from here, he would have had enough courage? Creon, the news had it, but after the king's death no one came forward to avenge this crime. Oedipus, and what prevented revealing the truth about king's death here? Creon, the Sphinx. Dark augurs drew attention from secret matters to momentary concerns. I'm commenting. I would already mention here that Oedipus, who killed his father unknowingly, as we will learn later in this narrative, is by birth the number pi. The definition of pi is the ratio of the length of a circle to its diameter. The diameter is 2r. That's why we talk about the plural here, because it's a more complex form, not just one number. But due to the diameter, it is on the axis, and it will be easier to explain later in the course of all the events that are still ahead of us. I keep reading. Oedipus. So I will reveal things from the beginning, because Phoebus and you rightly directed your attention to the murdered one. Together with you, with our combined strength, I repay the debt to God and the debt of our land. And not to help the distant kinsman, but I'll do I for myself also, because that murderer could raise his hand against me in such criminal manner today. By doing service to lawyers I will serve myself. So, my children, rise up from these steps, take up your branches of supplication quickly, and let someone summon the people, to let them know I'll do everything, and by the will of gods, the fate of happiness will come, or the fall. Priest, let's rise, children. After all, the very goals that he announces have led us here, and let Phoebus, who sent that advice, bring us out of the grave destruction as the savior.